Welcome back to the Tectonic Takes podcast. And I think we're all going to be having positive answers for this. But Devon, how are you doing?
I'm happy. Quakes win.
Yes.
We all enjoy our good morning coffee, posting it to social media.
Exactly.
How are we doing, Abram?
I'm feeling good. There's just so much ecstasy after a Quakes win. I don't care how bad we are. I just want to ride this as long as I can. I'm cool if we don't play any more games this season. Just ending on a win would make my year, honestly.
I don't mean to say this on an election year, but stop the count. But how about this lineup that got it done for the Earthquakes? So the goalkeeper that ended up getting the second clean sheet for the Quakes this season, the first in MLS play, is William Yarbrough, and it was almost a year since his last MLS clean sheet back with the Colorado Rapids, and he's endured such a tough season. He's been partially to blame, sure. You can put blame on all the players because of the defense has been that poor, but not today. This is a new Quakes in the way that they handle themselves defensively. And William Yarbrough, he ended up making some key saves. Let's talk a little bit more about his performance individually before we go into the rest of the lineup and about some of his quotes from the press conference. So, Devon, a few thoughts on Yarbrough's performance in particular.
Sure, I'll weigh the the positive and negative here at least, and we'll start with the positive in that, Yarbrough definitely did make a couple of key saves, especially in the first half. There was that one chance where I guess it was offsides, but the Chicago player was a one-on-one. Yarbrough came out, challenged the player, and he lost his footing and completely missed the target on a shot. He definitely came in clutch for at least most of the game. Although, I think even Yarbrough will tell you personally he did not have the best game despite getting a clean sheet. There was that one moment where he tried clearing the ball and completely whiffed it. Ball went over his foot, and it would have rolled in for maybe an own goal if it wasn't for Rodriguez right there to clean up after it. There were a couple other chances that he had that I can't really remember right now, but that was the big one. The big one was him completely whiffing. He's a good keeper, and I love his heart. I love his little interview after the game. I think it was an all right performance. Nothing really standout-ish. I think we've seen better from him in this season.
So, as always, I know it's hard to remind yourselves this even as diehard Quakes fans because of the state of the goalkeeper situation right now. But if all our goalkeepers are healthy, William Yarbrough is our third-choice goalkeeper. And what you expect from a third-choice keeper, especially a veteran like Yarbrough, is that he can pull out a performance like this maybe 1 to 2 games because you're playing your starter majority of those games, and then your backup probably a few more of those games, if that, than 1 or 2 games. So this is what would have been asked for him, but he's been asked to do a lot more, and he hasn't been able to do a whole lot more. And soccer is a funny sport. You could play incredibly and stay on your head like Tim Howard and still concede 2 goals in that game against Belgium in the World Cup. And you could not have too much to do, like in certain U.S. World Cup qualifiers maybe in a few cycles ago, and get a clean sheet, and it's all good. So clean sheets are a tough metric to rate goalkeepers, but they're one of the easiest and most successful ways to do so. And just for the confidence and morale of this team, not only getting a win, but a clean sheet on top of that is so important. Abram, your thoughts on Yarbrough?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Devon in that it was an okay performance. I would kind of put it below average for Yarbrough standards. I think that he's a very consistent keeper. But like you said, Ivan, he's probably our third choice if everyone's fit. JT, I think, is better, and then Daniel's better than that. Like I said, he had that one. He tried to touch it. He told us in the press conference that he just has a habit of when he's receiving the ball to cut back, and when he did that, the ball rolled over his foot, and it almost went in for it wouldn't be an own goal, I don't think, but it would definitely be a huge mistake. So I'm glad that Rodriguez was there to stop that, and then he made a different mistake in the second half, I believe. I don't quite remember it, but it was egregious, and you can't be doing that. And so, for those reasons, I think it was a below average performance. But I really love when Yarbrough is selected to take part in the press conference because he is super well spoken and he's very candid and always tells us what's on his mind. And the way he speaks, he has a lot of emotion, and he lets us feel what he's feeling at that moment. And he didn't hold anything back. And he admitted that he didn't have the best game. But luckily for us, it still culminated in a clean sheet and a win.
Yeah, and Yarbrough's words and the way that he owned his performance, and it really did connect to a lot of people that saw the press conference once the video was made available. Of course, Quakes fans appreciate what he had to say. Many of his fans from Colorado Rapids days and his previous stops in his career appreciated what he brought to the table there, and it was definitely something that we're happy to share that part of the proceedings with a lot of people. And we want to thank, as always, the great team at the San Jose Earthquakes who give us so much accessibility to the players, the coaches, these press conferences, and to be at the games. We really do appreciate that. So
I think you should thank Devon more than anyone else.
yeah,
Because I got those videos, but Devon put them out immediately. So shout out to Devon for doing that.
thank
Yeah, that
you
was
once
really
again,
quick.
Devin. Yeah,
That was really
you
quick.
did so well. That was very quick indeed. So, yeah, keep up the good work, Devin. We appreciate you, and it's one of the many great things you do here at Tectonic Takes.
Thank you very much. We'll keep trying to put out those videos as quick as possible in the next home press conferences. I know away, Quicks Epicenter likes to they like to stream their pressers. We don't have video access to that in the media room. However, during home games, we will continue to try and push exactly the way we did last press conference.
Right, and
I think that.
we did. I call it MLS viral. If anything gets more than like 20 likes in MLS Twitter standards, like that's pretty darn good. So, especially if you're not one of the big guys like Andrew Wiebe or Matt Doyle. So, that was pretty cool. Or especially Tom Bogarts.
Right.
Anyway, the rest of the lineup, we had the back line of Tanner Beeson, Daniel Muni, Rodriguez, and Vitor Costa. We had Jackson Ewell and returning from Ecuador, Carlos Gruezo in the center midfielder positions. Espinoza on the right, Kanovich on the left. I was thinking Copa America, not Peruvian Marcos Lopez. We had Hernan Lopez, of course.
Marcos Lopez was in fact at the game, but he was not on the field playing for the team.
Well, Peru spent so much time in the United States with the Copa America, so why not Marcos Lopez come over here? Thank you for visiting us. And Jeremy Abobasi up top. We'll talk a little bit more about a few of the key players for the Quakes. I'll just run through quick the Chicago Fire lineup. Believe it or not, before this game, they were playing kind of well, if not better, than when Xherdan Shaqiri was there. Xherdan Shaqiri, of course, made it to the quarterfinals along with Switzerland. He made his penalty in that shootout, but by some witchcraft, England somehow won that penalty shootout. So, fortunately, Switzerland is eliminated. Unfortunately, Chicago Fire fans, Shaqiri is coming back soon, and good luck with that. But they had Chris Brady in goal, 20 years old, so he's a very young goalkeeper, but he's doing pretty well for MLS. Arnaud Souquet, Wyatt Almsberg, and then Rafael Sichos in the back line. Then you had two wingbacks. You had Alan Aragoni and Marin Hale Selassie, some of Shaqiri's Swiss buddies there. A midfield of Gaston Jimenez, Kellen Acosta, and then the key player that I highlighted before the game, Brian Gutierrez, a 21-year-old center midfielder. He could play more advanced position. I thought he was going to be a key player for the Chicago Fire if they were to get a result here, along with Hugo Kuipers, who was pretty dangerous as well, and then Chris Miller is his strike partner. But let's start with, maybe can use some improvement, and then we'll go into some of the key star players of this game. The only starter to not get a 7.0 rating or higher, according to FootMob, was Jeremy Abobasi. So maybe another frustrating game for him, but he won't care because they ended up winning. But what do you think of Jeremy Abobasi's performance, Abram?
Before I get into that, before we get people in the comments, we didn't play a 4-3-3 today, so we didn't have Benji on the left like you had mentioned. Instead, we played a 5-2-3. and Lopez was on the left, while Benji was right wing back.
Gotcha.
So that's an interesting choice. But just to get ahead of the comments
Yeah,
before they start,
because
blowing us
it was
up.
my mistake for using the foot mob formation. I wasn't taking notes like I usually did in this game,
Right.
so I had to rely on that. My bad.
No problem. But Jeremy Abobasi, I think that Footmob, they did get that right. They didn't get the formation right, but they did get that right. Where Abobasi, uh, it's not that he wasn't like getting involved at all, but he had one of those games where he was dropping really deep, obviously, but then he wasn't really getting the link up play to link up. Like he was getting on the ball and then trying to make passes, but they would be cut out or he would try and dribble and be muscled off with the ball. He just didn't have a very good game. It wasn't his worst performance by any means, but he just kind of wasn't really there. But luckily, I think that the different formation really helped make up for Jeremy's absence in a sense. And the players around him really stepped up and helped cover his deficiencies.
Yeah. Would it be fair to say that the reason why we didn't see any subs until the 81st, 82nd minute is because the starting 11 was playing so well throughout the match and a complete performance, Devon?
I'd argue the first half was fairly sloppy. I know there was a lot of disconnect on passes, especially in the middle and offensive third. The defensive third, we were just moving the ball around side to side, trying to figure out the best way to find an opening between Chicago's midfield and back line. However, when we got to their back line or midfield or their line of defense, we just couldn't seem to break it until around the second half. And I think that's due to the fact that we played Hernan over on the left-hand side. It was kind of weird to see that because he's normally a centralized player. And I think that's the reason why Jeremy Abobasi wasn't linking up with anyone as well, because there wasn't really anyone he's used to linking up with. He had Jackson Ewell and Carlos Grezzo underneath him, and that's it. Hernan Lopez was on his left and Christian Espinoza was on his right. And, both of those guys are always looking for goal. And with the absence of Hernan, I could understand the reason why Jeremy Abobasi was dropping so far back, because he wasn't getting that necessary service in the midfield third, looking for a good way to maintain possession. So I would argue second half was a major improvement. But first half, a lot of sloppy passing, a lot of easy giveaways that could have just, if we stuck to the fundamentals and made simple passes, I think we would have found better chances.
Yeah, I think so too. Abram?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that the second half was better. One thing that I learned from Ian Russell was that in the second half, at the halftime talk, he talked to Hernan and told him, "Hey, we need you to make more runs in behind," because he was kind of coming deep into the half space as like an inside forward to try and receive the ball short and then make something happen. And we all know that he loves to do that, right? But we needed somebody wide to stretch the defense, and that ended up being the cause for the goal. He ran in behind, and Espinosa found him. I think that Abovasi did struggle to find link up play because Hernan wasn't in his usual spot. He did, like I said, Hernan did try to drop back a little bit to help, but he still had to keep in mind his responsibilities on the left, so he couldn't fully commit to being that enganche type player right in the center of midfield to be the number 10 like he likes to be. So Bobasi was trying to pick up that slack, but I think in the second half, I don't know, but what I intuited was that Ewell realized that Guezo is Ecuador Guezo today, and that he has more freedom, and he really helped with the link-up play more than in the first half. I really liked Ewell's ball-playing skills, and he really showed, the upsides of having a player like him, where he's like the webbing between everything. He likes to connect everything, and we played more through Ewell, and that really opened things up for us. And I think Grezzo was, like I said, huge for this match, and really he's one of the players that I think we can, hang that hat on and be like, this is the reason why we won because you stepped up, as well as Rodriguez, Muni. Beeson was pretty good today. Benji was incredible on that right hand side. He's incredible in the air. He should play basketball after he's done with soccer. He should move over to basketball because he can jump.
I think that there was some shaky moments in that first half, but you don't sub players out usually in the first half. So unless you're Ronald Koeman subbing out Joey Veerman in the first half of the Austria loss in the Euro, but that was a pretty solid performance in terms of how the players collectively picked up the slack or recovered from others' mistakes, and that's what we needed. I think that a lot of these losses boiled down to everyone was playing poorly at the same time, and it's really hard to win games that way. Uh, so we did see Preston Judd, Alfredo Morales, Jack Skane, Tommy Thompson, and Amal Pellegrino come off the bench for this one. Chicago Fire only elected to use 3 of their substitutes, but they were all attacking-minded. Midfielder Fabian Herbers, and then some attackers in Tom Barlow and Georgios Kousas. And Tom Barlow, he started to heat up a little bit near the end of his career with the New York Red Bulls. It looked like he got a goal there, but thankfully it was ruled offside. So Devon, walk us through that offside call.
I don't remember too much of that. I think I was looking at my phone texting a friend. Ironically, considering I'm always upset about other people having conversations mid game, and I'm the one caught out for that. So I kind of missed the play, but right before that play happened, my dad looked over to me and he goes, "Hey, it's the 70th minute. Something's gonna happen." 10 seconds later, they end up scoring a goal against us, and my dad just blows up saying, "Hey, guess what? I called it. 70th minute. We're gonna concede another one." But no, that ended up not happening. Thankfully, VAR came back, ruled it offsides. So thank you, VAR. One of the few times that they've actually been on our side all season.
We're back to liking VAR for a bad day or
so. Yeah, just for a couple of days, and then it goes back to normal. But Abram, do you want to give us a rundown of that play?
Yeah, since you were on your phone, Devon, never go on your phone again. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we have to send you letters. Or an owl.
We're sending carry.
Right. No, so what happened was somebody shot. I don't know any of the Chicago players other than, Barlow, because he didn't end up scoring, and Gutierrez, I guess. But somebody shot the ball. It hit the post. It hit the crossbar, and Yarborough went to stop the, crossbar shot, and then Barlow headed it into an open net, basically. Very reminiscent of the Joveljic goal, where Ricky Pood shot it off the crossbar. It fell right to Joveljic. Not much Yarborough could do, but thankfully Barlow was just barely offsides. Rodriguez, somebody who we don't usually get him on the press conferences. He commented on that and said that he knew that Barlow was offside. So when it was revealed that they were going to be checking VAR, he was very confident that we'd get the call. I wasn't. We never get the calls. And honestly, I think that we should have gotten another check for a penalty. I think Kanovic was brought down in the box. No contact on the ball, so that was terrible. But anyways, that goal, I'm glad that it was called off because it was such a terrible way to concede. And it was in the 70th minute, too, which made it I felt so cursed. But yeah, this game and the result took a huge weight off my shoulders, and I'm so happy.
Yeah, and it was a very marginal call, but it was the right call. It was very clear to see in the replay, so I'm really glad that the referees did not screw that up, and Quicks were able to hold on there. I will say, though, the fact that you don't remember U.S. men's national team fan favorite Kellen Acosta, and I say that sarcastically,
right.
That's a big red flag. But maybe less ironically, with the lack of young goalkeepers coming through the U.S. men's national team right now, the likes of Chris Brady maybe gets a look in between now and the World Cup. I'm not saying he's the answer. More so likely, Gaga Slanina would be the one you push for first, but I would give him a lick too. But we'll see about that.
Not important. If they're not Emi Ochoa, I don't care.
We got 7 minutes of extra time in this game, and that felt excessive, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot. I think the actual time should have been like 3 or 4 minutes. I don't
Yeah,
know
I was thinking
where they
4
got the
minutes. Yeah,
7 minutes. I mean, maybe the Hernan injury, and there were a couple other players who had little, mid game scratches. Yeah, substitutions, but I didn't think it added up to 7 minutes. That was pretty excessive. It's almost like I don't know what happens with FIFA as of late. Like, Bay FC getting 10 minutes of added time in their game, Quakes getting 7 minutes of added time at the end of their game. I don't get it. I don't know where it's coming from. Maybe they're adding on minutes from like the first half, but there's also added time from the first half, so it doesn't make sense to me.
and congrats, BFC currently in a playoff spot. They had a tough game against Washington Spirit, but that's okay. That's expected in their inaugural season. It was really good for them. Oakland Roots also got a win against league-leading Louisville City in the USL. So Bay Area soccer, quite a tremendous weekend. And I think that another thing that shocked me about this 7 minutes added on is that this is one of the quicker VAR checks. We've seen some VAR checks that take 2, 3, 4 minutes. This wasn't one of them. It felt like it was 1 to 2 minutes. So that's another reason why I felt like there wasn't that much extra time to add on to the game. But Abram, what level on a scale of 1 to 10 was your anxiety level during that extra time?
I mean, we always have a lot of anxiety, and like I said, it took a huge weight off my shoulders because I was just sitting there, palms sweaty, not just because of the heat, but Yarbrough mentioned something after the game that I kind of agreed with. We didn't look like we were going to concede. Like, it didn't feel like we didn't have like a defense made of Swiss cheese, and I don't know. I felt like good about it. I felt like we could beat anything they threw at us, but that didn't make me that much more confident. I was still, I was still nervous about it, but I would give it like a 6 because Rodriguez looked solid, Muni looked solid, Beeson looked solid, and Benji, like I said, he was kicking butt today or yesterday. But yeah, it was. I'll give it a 6.
Yeah. For me, it was just like always an 8 or a 9 when it's a 1-0, a lead going into extra time. And I'm hoping that's a trend that can change going forward.
I can I say
Yeah.
it was a 9 when I thought that we were 1-1.
Mm-hmm.
Like before the VAR check, it was like full like we're losing 5-1 now. Like
Yeah, have that vibes too.
Yeah.
I want to give out a big shout out to Carlos Grezzo. I know we've been kind of pushing against some players specifically. I'll take fault for a couple. For example, like Beeson. We've been kind of ragging on Beeson for a while just because when he's on the field, sometimes late in the game, concede goals. But he was a part of the team, I think, twice now this season. One in against Oakland and one yesterday for clean sheets. He's a part of 2 clean sheets this season for the Earthquakes, and who would have thought the answer to having a clean sheet is to put both Daniel Muni and Tanner Beeson on each side of Rodriguez in a back 5 with Benji Kikanovic at the right side, lining up near Christian Espinoza. Who would have thought?
Yeah, they really.
And for a while he was also lining up next to Tommy Thompson.
Oh, that's
Tommy
true.
was out there defending the right side. I was surprised that we didn't have Marie. I mean, we had Marie. We just decided to use Tommy instead.
I'm sure a certain
I
man
just
is
thought that was
upset
curious.
about that.
You can make an argument
Yeah.
for at least 5 players for player of this match. Either side of the provider of the goal, Christian Espinoza, to the scorer of the goal, Hernan Lopez. Benji Kikanovic, of course, is all over the place and in a good way. And then Carlos Grezzo was a stalwart in the defense. One of his impressive plays early on was he was in a wide position, moonlighting as a left back for that play, and he just completely read Chris Miller's intentions with the ball and cleaned up impressively. That's when I knew it's like, okay, Grezzo is here to play today. And then, sure enough, that's what he did the rest of the game. And then, of course, Rodriguez, he led that back line so well. So if you had to pick just one person for your player of the match, Devon, who would you pick and why?
If I were to choose one for player of the match, I mean, besides the obvious, everyone's excited over Hernan Lopez Munoz. I say that in quotes because there's multiple ways to take that. But you know, I honestly would say either Rodriguez or Carlos Grezzo. Grezzo held it down in the midfield as a six, and I was really happy with his performance. So I'm gonna shout out Carlos Grezzo as one of the players of the match for sure.
Okay, Abram, who you pick?
I'm going with Espinosa. I mean, that ball. I was saying in the Discord that the only negative from that game was that I'm not going to be able to see that ball again played from the angle that I saw it from, because it was just so beautiful the way he placed it, and the camera doesn't do it justice from the side. Like I was kind of like above it into an angle, you could just see it like the whole way. It was magical, and we've come to expect that from Espinosa. But even then, this is one of my favorite assists that he's made. And also, he was like on them the whole time. He was running the offense because Lopez was in a somewhat unfamiliar position. Obviously wasn't firing on all cylinders, but Espinosa, I felt the whole game was really on it as a stark contrast to the previous game where I thought he was one of the weakest players on the field. He really wasn't having a good game against St. Louis. He couldn't get in the ball, and when he did, he wasn't doing much with it. So I'm really happy to see that Christian is still here and he's still going to fight for each game.
Yeah, I think that St. Louis game was that moment where a lot of people were thinking, it's like, is Espinosa to blame? Because I think Espinosa has been like, whereas Grezzo and Beeson have been one of the first few names to point out, it's like their performances are dragging us down. Espinosa is usually played. Oh, he's one of the good ones though. We got to protect Espinosa at all costs. But calling a spade, that was a tough game for him. And this time around, he came up with the goods in that very crucial moment. That was Espinosa's 99th goal contribution in Major League Soccer, and he broke a tie with two Quakes legends, Richard Mulroney and Shea Salinas. They were both sitting at 14 game-winning assists, and Espinosa was prior to that moment there. So congratulations, Christian Espinosa. Another record broken for him. It's just been incredible. On that note, I'm going to also vote for Carlos Grezzo for player of the match for me personally. Maybe it's the NBA most improved player effect in me right now because there were some low lows this season. Completely changed the narrative there with that performance, at least for this game. We got to see it consistently, but it was just so apparent how impactful it was. Rarely is a defensive midfielder's presence that impactful unless they're like Superman out there covering every blade of grass, and the heat map might have been not enough justice still for Carlos Grezzo and how well he performed. And maybe a secret to his success. If we're sticking with this basketball theme, Space Jam, Michael Jordan's secret stuff that empowered the Looney Tunes to beat the Monstar. Maybe another encounter with the GOAT. Did anyone check Carlos Grezzo maybe had, Messi's jersey underneath his Quakes jersey, the one he swapped over from that quarterfinal, because that is incredible. It's always great to be recognized by Lionel Messi to get that jersey exchange.
There is a working theory in our Discord server. I don't know, Abram, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we think that the musk, just the pure sweat and musk from Messi's jersey, has permeated Grezzo's home and given him the aura from Messi's shirt has empowered Grezzo with the power of 10 men, and he has now absorbed the power of the greatest player of all time. At least that's how I like to think about it in my head.
We used Lamine Yamal as an example. He got bathed by Messi in his youth, and now look at him. And Carlos Grezzo gets to wake up with Messi musk every day, and now look what it's done to him.
I gotta go shake hands with Messi and just never wash that hand, and I'll be amazing.
Bro's gonna start posting TT. Bro's gonna start posting TT interviews 10 seconds after the interviews are over.
Before he even finishes his thoughts, it's going to be out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we want to also congratulate Ian Russell on his first win in this spell in charge of the San Jose Earthquakes. He's been around the organization for so long. He's a well-respected manager, assistant manager, member of the organization. this could be his opportunity. If he can put his stamp on this team and in this turnaround this season, maybe he breaks through and becomes the permanent San Jose Earthquakes manager. What are your thoughts so far on the early stages of the Ian Russell era and getting this important first win, Abram?
I mean, I still maintain my position that we're gonna concede the most goals in MLS history. Um, yeah, we kept a clean sheet, but before this match, we had conceded 5-2. Now we're 5-3 in terms of goals conceded. We're we're 1-2, right? 1-0-2 in terms of overall record with him. It hasn't shown me that like, oh my God, this is the new Pep Guardiola. I think that there's positives, and I think that if the team can believe, then we're going places. And I think that he's going to need some support, though. If he wants to, really make a difference, we need more support in the transfer window, and that's hard to give to an interim. So I think my final answer on that is that we haven't seen a big enough sample size. I like him, I like his tactics, and I like that he switched the formation to fit what we have rather than what he wants us to be. And that was one of my criticisms of Lucci. He wants that 4-3-3. Whatever it's going to take to make that happen is going to happen. And, he's trying to fit square pegs in a round hole at times. Whereas Russell is like, whatever's going to get us points, that's what I'm going with. So I like that, but not a big enough sample size. I don't think we're going to, achieve much this season, and I still think that we're on track to get that most goals conceded in MLS history.
If we somehow don't get the most goals conceded in MLS history, I would say this is a huge success for Ian's temporary term and provides a huge boost for his potential chance to be permanent manager for the Earthquakes. Even if it's 1 or 2 goals over at this point to break the record, I still think that's a good threshold for him, considering how many goals we've already scored into the season. That said, building on what Abram said earlier, Russell is willing to try different things. He's willing to try different formations, play players in different positions without the media, Quakes Epicenter, or us, kind of hinting at that possibility of doing so. He's doing it all on his own, and I think that's what I respect most about him. Putting Benji Kikanovic at right wing back, I don't think any of us would have thought that was a key to success. Or putting Hernan at left wing, or these different experiments. Not experiments because we've already seen what happens. Yeah, exactly. But things like that is what I think why Ian deserves a good chance and why he should be where he's at right now as the head coach of the Earthquakes, because he's willing to make those changes, those formation changes in 3 games. I think we saw almost like 3 different formations in 3 separate games under Ian already. He wants the best out of these players, and the players want the best for the team.
Benji Kikanovic, he does have some of those qualities that Tommy Thompson, he started his career as an attacking midfielder, and now he's a right back. So those abilities to really understand the craft of a new position, to bring that tenacity that you're usually expending that energy on the offensive front, but then being able to kind of do the reverse and mold yourself into that right wing back in this case. I'm not saying that's where he's going to play every game, but it was once unthinkable that Tommy Thompson would play as a defender. And look what's happened now. That's his regular position. So it takes that bravery to take that first step as a player and as a manager to see that in him. And there's still a long road to go, but for someone like Ian Russell, who has long paid his dues to be in this position as an interim manager, it's a good moment for him, and I hope he gives him that grace to enjoy that victory. And then, of course, he's going to be right at work now for the rest of the week, preparing for the next game against Kansas City. We should look at the league table. We'll look at both conferences since this was an East versus West game. And this does also put in perspective of where the Quakes are still at. So in the Eastern Conference, I think the league as a whole, if you're not a Messi or Miami fan, is happy to see Cincinnati hold on to that top spot, especially with their head-to-head record against Inter Miami. So they're the top two there. Defending champs, Columbus Crew in third, and then you got the New York Twins, Red Bulls, followed by NYC, fourth and fifth. Rounding out the playoff spots, Charlotte, Orlando, Nashville, and Toronto. Although Atlanta is level with Toronto goal difference, and they are tied on points there. No, on points, but not goal difference uh, in 10th place. And then 11th is Montreal, 12th is New England, 13th is Chicago. They lost this game, but they're only 3 points behind Toronto in ninth. And same can be said about the Philadelphia Union, 4 points behind DC United. So we're starting to get to the business end of the season. We're two-thirds completed, but at least in the Eastern Conference, you can't really write out any team just yet. Like you may be able to write out the Earthquakes on the West, perhaps, in terms of playoffs. On the West, though, LAFC in first place, but 3 teams are tied on 43 points. So that's followed by Real Salt Lake and LA Galaxy. And I need to correct myself. Head-to-head is the tiebreaker before goal difference. Then we got Colorado in fourth, Timbers fifth, followed by the rest of the Cascadia trio, Vancouver sixth, Seattle Sounders seventh, and then a couple of Texas teams rounding out the playoff spots right now, Houston and Austin. Minnesota, the first ones outside looking in, 1 point behind Austin. And then you can start to see a bit of a gulf between the rest of the teams in the West. Dallas are 7 points off the playoff spot in 11th. St. Louis, who we lost to them, and they're not doing much better, so still got work to do there. 12th, St. Louis. And then our next opponents, Sporting Kansas City, they're 13th. They're on 20 points, minus 11 goal difference, compared to our 14 points, minus 26 goal difference. If we can beat Sporting Kansas City, so that's a big if, what position do you think the Quakes can finish this season? We'll start with Abram.
First of all, before I get into that, you mentioned that the New York teams are twins, and we are going to get pummeled by the Red Bulls fans for saying that, because New York City is for sure the favored younger sibling of the two. Much richer and also much younger. But, I just wanted to make it a little joke
just
there.
A grouping thing. I mentioned the Cascadia trio, Texas, and all that, but yeah. Bad choice of words.
I totally understand why. I just, I have to give you a hard time. But you asked me what position. I think, I was thinking, in terms of overall, I think that we can avoid wooden spoon, like, for the league, maybe like 27th place overall out of 29. I don't think that we should really expect to get too much higher up the table. I think we can finish above Sporting Kansas City if we, work really hard. I think we can do better than DC United have been doing. But I don't have that much hope. We don't have super deep depth. One thing I meant to ask you and Russell about was what do you plan to do when a Muni gets hurt? Then what do you do? We don't have many more center backs, and we don't know when Bruno Wilson is coming back.
Casey Walls will be next.
Yeah, we have Casey Walls, but he's never played an MLS match, so that doesn't fill me with confidence. And in my opinion, from what I've seen at MLS Next Pro, he's a competent player, but he's not like we need to bring him up. I think that Alejandro Cano, who only has a Quakes 2 contract, would be just as suitable to be playing for the first team, but I don't think that we should really want either of them. So I'm kind of surprised that we don't have another center back that we're looking at, because we're very thin in that place. We have 3 playing currently if we keep the formation, and then we have after that it's really looking bleak. So I worry about what happens if somebody gets hurt. So yeah, like I said, I think 14th, 13th, maybe 12th. 12th would be really good, I think. But I don't see much better than that.
Yeah, I can rule out 10th in the equation, because that would involve overtaking Minnesota, and they have double our points right now. So that's probably not going to happen. Looking at the other teams that are struggling in the West, Dallas, St. Louis, and Sporting Kansas City. If we can beat Sporting Kansas City, then I can start thinking about 13th place. It's hard to envision ourselves 11th or 12th because we've already lost to Dallas, we've already lost to St. Louis, so that's where it gets tricky for me. But Devon, what do you think?
I would say, yeah, we're probably a contender for maybe 11th. Abram put a good note out there in that, we're running with a 3-man back line for victories right now and clean sheets, and that's all we have. That's all we have left. We don't have any other center backs. So if there's an injury, now we're gonna have to go back to a 2-back, and the only depth we have is Casey Walls, and I don't even think there's anyone deeper than that. The only guy left as a center back is Casey Walls on the team. So if anything happens, then we are straight out of depth in that position, which is weird considering Alex Morgan on Quick's Epicenter had asked Leach that question
Yeah.
about what players we want signed, and none of which involved center back. So I'm very shocked by that. However, going back to the positions, I just don't see other MLS teams really losing that much ground.
Mm-hmm.
In MLS overall, I know the West is pretty tight. West is usually one of those high competition divisions compared to the East. East is more drastic in that sense. But I just don't see the Earthquakes in the remaining schedule to pick up that many points. It's going to be a tough road away, as well as some tough home games as well.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the first team out of the playoff conversation right now for the Western Conference, Minnesota United, we already established where they are relative to us in terms of point total. But on either end of their lineup, when everyone's available, you have a Canadian men's national team quality player in Dane St. Clair in goalie, and then you have a strike partnership of Tani Alu Wasei, who's been on fire this season, and Timu Puki, who's maybe not had a best season by his standards, but he's still Timu Puki. So, this is a really good team that are getting it together more than the Quakes, but still aren't meeting their goal of at least making the playoffs if the playoffs start today. So, we have to put that in perspective there. I think that it's going to be tricky, and I'm just thinking, let's say you use Copa America as your scouting for a new center back. I don't even think he played that much for Paraguay, but someone like Gustavo Gomez, who is doing very well in the Brazilian league, he would be a dream to partner with Rodriguez as a center back, or at least compete with Bruno Wilson. So that would be the type of player that maybe Gustavo Gomez in particular, given his status in the Brazilian league, would be a little too expensive for what budget we have left for this season. But at least making a swing for that kind of player, someone playing some of these competitive leagues in the Americas, maybe, if you're not looking at Europe, perhaps. That would be something that would be great. And I think that San Jose Earthquakes could do no wrong in terms of bringing in more bodies across the board because of the depth issue, but center back in particular is something that is really concerning. But yeah, looking ahead to this Sporting Kansas City match, it's not going to be easy. They tend to have our number whenever we face them, particularly in high leverage situations. Unfortunately, that's just comes with talking about Sporting Kansas City. Those matches come back to haunt us once again. But their most recent game was a 3-2 win against SC Dallas, so that could be a crucial 6-point swing for them in terms of rebuilding their season. They went down to 10 players, but that was at the very end of the match. Zoran Bassan got a second yellow card here. But their goals came from William Agada, assisted by Memo Rodriguez. The second was also Agada with Alanis Vargas providing that assist, and then Memo Rodriguez with a goal and assist that game. So they are having to rely on some of their more depth players because, once again, they've missed some players such as Johnny Russell, for example, due to time with some injuries. Tim Melia gave up an own goal to FC Dallas, but he's still a tough goalkeeper nonetheless. They got Alan Polito. He played as an attacking midfielder apparently in their last match, and one of the Quakes' least favorite players in Major League Soccer, Daniel Shallowy, is never present up front for them. So it's going to be a tough match. Pierre Vermees seems to know whatever trick San Jose Earthquakes can throw at him, especially against a less experienced head coach in Ian Russell. Pierre Verme is very few more experienced than him. He's been all over MLS history books for his time with the Kansas City Wiz, Kansas City Wizards, Sporting Kansas City, all those iterations of Kansas City there. So, what are some of your thoughts going into this match against Kansas City, Devon?
I think it's going to be tough for Kansas City to specifically, study our play. They've got 3 separate games under Russell to analyze, and none of the 3 games are quite tactically the same. So I think they're going to find a very hard time to understand a suitable tactic against the Earthquakes, especially since it's going to be a home game for us. So in that regard, I still think the Earthquakes, in a weird optimistic sense, maybe it's just because we won, maybe I'm delusional, I think it's going to give us a little bit more of an advantage against Sporting Kansas City, and we may find a chance to collect another 3 points back to back at home.
Is this a game that you'll be at?
I will be there. I will be there no matter what.
Abram, will you be joining him?
I mean, I plan to right now. Everything looks like I should be there, but we know how life is, and something might happen. I might not be able to show up, but I will watch. If anything.
Yeah, and with any game with Sporting Kansas City, you also have the Alan Pulido storyline of it all. That it looked like he was going to be a Quakes player at one point. He ended up choosing Kansas City instead. And he does have a bit of an underwhelming resume relative to his standards when he first joined the league. But I feel like he's grown comfortable in the Sporting Kansas City system, even when he's not scoring goals, that he's going to be a threat. He's going to find a way to get his teammates involved and get himself into dangerous positions. And I do feel like even though Sporting Kansas City are struggling this season, that this is a step up in competition from Chicago Fire. I feel like the remaining games before Leagues Cup, they get progressively more difficult. Sporting Kansas City and then Houston Dynamo, even though they're in a playoff spot and Minnesota aren't, I feel like we're going to have more trouble with Minnesota, mainly because it'll be in the Twin Cities there for Minnesota. That is a more appropriate use of the word twin there, not for the New York clubs. Thank you. Yeah, we'll see. It's still a case-by-case basis. If they can replicate this result in this performance against Sporting Kansas City, that will give them confidence to start to move up the food chain and see what they can do, if they can hang with some of the tougher teams in Major League Soccer. But there's always the chance that, okay, it's Chicago Fire, that they had their hot run a few weeks ago, but they started to cool off, and now they're just as bad as we are. We managed to be slightly less bad on the day, and maybe we're in for more pain and misery later this season. But at the very least, this gives us something more to analyze and more things to talk about, because everyone knows that when you go on a lengthy losing streak or an unbeaten run or both, that you start to run out of things to talk about, because there's not much more we can do. You can't change the entire team overnight. So a lot of players are playing for their futures in San Jose Earthquakes, playing for their futures in Major League Soccer or another relevant top flight league at this point. But for now, the San Jose Earthquakes have something to build on and something to be proud of. Any final thoughts on the Quakes before we get into one last segment, Devon?
I don't necessarily have any extra any comments. I think we said what needed to be said. If there's any extra player shout outs, can't really think of them at the time. But man, that attendance for last game, I know it was really hot out. I understand how hot it was. People decided to stay home just to keep themselves cool. I have never seen as little people on the south side of the stadium as I did yesterday.
Number real quick. So the last recorded attendance for a PayPal Park home game for Major League Soccer, the Portland Timbers game for the Quakes, it was a 12,122, and even that might have been a little generous. Do you feel like it got even to half that for this game against Chicago Fire?
It felt like a U.S. Open Cup game, maybe like 6,000-7,000.
6,000-7,000.
Around that, yeah. I personally counted. I was so bored pregame that I personally counted all the people on the southwest side, whichever one it is, and I think it was around 327, something like that.
Maybe we should stop counting people. Start counting the amount of alcoholic beverages purchased. Then we can beat the lead.
There we go. More beers bought, more goals scored.
Yeah. Do you want to give a score prediction for the game against Kansas City?
I'm cursed. Abram, you go.
Okay, Abram, how about your score prediction?
Man, I was thinking like, what is he gonna ask me? And like the last thing I want to do right now is give a prediction on this game. Honestly, I think 0-0 is not out of the question. And you'd think that wouldn't be a bad result, but like we need points to do anything with this season. So ties aren't very good. We're both bad. And I think we might both struggle to score. But I think it's going to hinge on Grezzo. I think if he can keep playing at an okay level, I'm not going to expect that kind of performance from him every time, but at least 75% of that.
Yeah.
You know, and for a lot of the season, he's played at 20% of that. So I'm still skeptical on Grezzo, and you know, the reason that we've been so hard on him is because we know that he could do this. You know, we know that this is what he can do, but he's not giving it to us. You know, so it's really frustrating to watch him. But when he does pull it out, you know, it shows how impactful it is, and so that's what I'm going to be looking out for.
Yep. And 75% of his best possible performance, I think that's a fair expectation for a DP level player. So I agree with you there. And for your reasons, I think that I'll also go with the 0-0 tie. Like I said, to step up in difficulty, in my opinion, and also step up in goalkeeper experience. Like Chris Brady, he's one of the best young goalkeepers around. But Tim Melia is on the other end of the spectrum. He's almost double his age, and he knows how to play against the Quakes. He's come up in big games in the past, so it's something we could see him keep a clean sheet on his end, and hopefully the Quakes with a lot of hard work can keep another clean sheet on our end. I just want to make sure that we could pick up points. If we could pick up points in both of our home games before League's Cup, not going to expect too much on the road against Minnesota, then I'll consider that a success and probably our best case scenario. One last thing I want to talk about, or you want to give your score prediction, Devon?
I think the only prediction I'm going to make is we will have a penalty called for us, and I will not say whether I will not say whether or not we will score, but we will have a penalty called in our favor, and that's it.
That would be great. And then Espinoza or Lopez take it?
I think Espy's taking it.
Espinoza gets up to 100 in terms of goal contributions.
The problem with this is that Devon is factually cursed, and so now even if we deserve a penalty, it will not be called. Like that is how Devon's curse works, and now I'm upset. Now we're screwed.
There we go. I mean, what's? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Devon.
I was going to ask Abram, what was that one game where I predicted something and it just went so horribly wrong? I think it was. I can't remember. LAFC. It might have been LAFC. It might have been Seattle, or I don't know.
I just think every time you predict something, it is bad. That is just my stance.
I think the ref that we'll get is the ref that that one horrible game versus the U.S. national team where he couldn't even shake Pulisic's hand. We're gonna get that type of referee.
Oh my! All right. The next time we record, we will have seen the results of the Euro 2024 and the Copa America 2024 tournaments. What a fun summer of soccer it's been. I want to know who you think is going to make the final, who you think is going to win. You don't have to give a score prediction, but we'll start with you this time, Devon. Your final matchups and winners for both tournaments.
For both tournaments, I think I'm just gonna go bold here. I think Uruguay is gonna win it all. Okay. And either that or Argentina, but I'm gonna predict Uruguay.
Beats Argentina in the
yeah. Okay. And if Favi sees this, shouting you out, Uruguay's gonna win it. Second one for Euros, I'm gonna get a lot of backlash for this as well, but I think England is gonna take it. It's gonna be some weird matchup between England and France. Watch it happen, and there's gonna be like no goals gonna go straight to penalties, and England's gonna win it on penalties.
This is the way England breaks 58 years of no tournament wins. Like that would be very, very funny. For
Uh-oh.
me, I think that their luck runs out. Though I think it's gonna be Spain versus Netherlands in the final. I felt like the winner of Spain versus Germany. I had Germany winning it going into this tournament, but the winner of that matchup is going to win it all. So Spain, you take over Germany's energy, and you'll win the Euros. As for the Copa America, I thought Argentina was going to win it this time. I felt like they were the fresher of the two heavyweights between Argentina and Brazil, and somehow I figured Colombia was going to get snagged. Maybe it would be against Uruguay in the semifinals, but I don't feel good about it. I feel like Colombia is the better team of any left in the Copa America. I definitely see them being in the final, but I'll have Argentina being Colombia in the final. The main reason why I don't think Uruguay is going to make the final, sorry, Fabi, is that Ronaldo Araujo is going to be suspended for the semifinal. So they can still beat Colombia, but it's just going to be really tough. Abram, who you got?
Um, I want to say England. I've supported England because every freaking football YouTuber that I support supports England. So it's hard for me to not, also support England. But I just they're so frustrating. It's like they have such a good team, but they don't want to be a good team. Um, I think Spain is a good choice. They've been like tearing people apart. So I'll say Spain. Spain, England, maybe in the final. I don't know. Is that even possible? I don't know. Um, then I want to say it's hard to bet against Messi, so I'm not going to. And I think that Argentina maybe give him the final send off for the national team.
All right, and yeah, Spain versus England matchup is possible, and we'll see. By the time we record the next podcast, we'll either be saying "Felicidades" or "Lo siento" based on our predictions there to Argentina and España. But the most important thing for us as Quakes fans is the losing streak is over, and we get to enjoy the victory. I hope you enjoyed this podcast as well. We'll see what unfolds against Kansas City on Saturday. Thank you all for listening and watching. Go Quakes!
Go Quakes.
Okay, quick.